Aloha and konbanwa. Hello, everybody. It's Chris, and you are watching the Weekly Spinner Rack. Welcome. I am a moment or so later than usual, about a minute late. I forgot my comics that were upstairs, and there are some good ones to talk about this week. I have some really nice things to say about the Lucky Devils. Transformers is a blast. This was one of my favorite issues of Absolute Batman. Bunch of stuff to talk about. I got a new art book that I think I want to show you a little bit of. And we've got a lot of news to talk about. Some of it's serious. We'll start with the serious stuff at the beginning, and then I'll get to some fun stuff. So that's what this show is, talking about news of the week as it relates to comics and talking about comic books. And if I finish in a good amount of time, I'll do some more drawing of one of my comic ideas. So let me do some shout outs to folks that are here. GT Key Comic, always one of the first. Hello to Jeremy Smith. Well, the thumbnail, I'm pretty upset. I'll talk about it. Hello, Chem Dog. Let's see. It'll start a little serious, but then I'll have some fun. Yeah, I'm sorry to hear that. I know that we're talking about some serious stuff, but you know, it's weird to ignore some of this stuff, right? So hello to wow, lots of folks jumping in. The numbers of eyeballs I see are going up. That's exciting to see on this end of things. Oh, and if you haven't had a chance, I uploaded a new episode. Hello, sister. Uploaded a new episode of Comic Tropes on my other channel. It's about Frank Frazetta. I'm very proud of it. Spent a lot of time working on it. And yeah, I think it came out pretty well, pretty close to what I had in mind and wanted to say. So definitely encourage you to give that a shot. I'm glad you got to see it. Thank you. Good. I'm caught up. So tell you what, is there anything else I need to do? Just a quick little piece of business. I'm not 100% sure when I'll be scheduling the weekly live streams for the future, just because I am going on a trip tomorrow morning. I'm going to be in Hawaii and Japan for the next 2 episodes of this show. But I'm looking forward to that. It should be great. Chrissy and I deserve a break. Chrissy's feeling pretty well, and I'm just really happy I get to see my dad. It's going to be great. Hey, EJ. Thanks for watching the episode. Appreciate that. Hello. Thank you. I'm glad so many people liked it. Hey! I'm having just a regular coffee tonight, but thank you, Steve. Thanks, everybody. I'll do my best to have a good time. But of course, I always sort of turn it into work and stuff like that. I am going to get to see David Nakayama. A lot of you are probably familiar with his amazing covers. He does so many variant covers for so many publishers. Beautiful, beautiful work. Really, really vibrant, eye-catching, and dynamic stuff. And so I am going to meet up with him, and then we'll see if I meet anybody else. But I definitely made plans to say hello to David in person. I'm excited for that. So let me add lots of ums as I sort of catch up here. I'll add the PowerPoint here. So yeah, that's me being somber or serious. Let's get into it. And I'll open this up when I sort of finish this news item to see if there's anything I may have missed, because this is developing very quickly. If you're not aware, because maybe you live further away, there are a series of wildfires going on in Los Angeles and the nearby area. We had some really bad winds down there that spread the fire. Unless there's a small chance there could even be arsonists that have set this, but that's really speculation. There's nothing confirmed. It's just that a couple people have been caught trying to start fires during this. So it's not out of the question that this may have been intentional. A little depressing. I hope it's just an accident. We may never know. We'll see. But I want to talk about some of the people that work in comics that have been affected by this, just because that's the area that we focus on, right? So first of all, Kanto co-creator, writer David M. Boer, his house has burned down. That was from the Eaton fire in Altadena. I will mention, he says that he, his partner, his dogs, they all evacuated in time. They're okay. But he did lose everything. And he started a GoFundMe here. If that's somebody that you're a fan of, maybe you have $5-10 to kick in, depending on your situation. Similarly, artist Andrew Robinson does a lot of coloring, does a lot of covers, but also does interiors. Really good artist. He and his family similarly evacuated in time, but they lost everything, including all of his original art. That's going to be a recurring theme with these writers and artists, is that they lost their comics collections or their art supplies, the original art that they've created. That kind of stuff, the original art, is obviously irreplaceable, no matter what number you put on it. So Andrew himself encouraged fans to simply maybe look into buying his original art from Sequence Art, but his sister started up a GoFundMe for him and his family. So there's a link to that. If you folks are fans of these people, you may want to consider looking that up. Not hard to find, and there's the links. I'm going to continue with this story. More people affected, and I probably don't have them all. I'm trying, but I may be missing people. Stephen T. Siegel, written lots of comics over the years, co-created a bunch of comics, co-created Big Hero 6 and Ben 10. Those are pretty well-known things because they've been, turned into TV and movies and stuff. But has also written comics like Sandman Mystery Theater, Alpha Flight, a bunch more. He lost his home and art collection. Again, evacuated with his family. Some family friends started a GoFundMe for Stephen. Mark Verheiden wrote a lot for Dark Horse back when they were new. A lot of Aliens stuff. Time Cop he co-created. Wrote for the movie versions of things like Mask and Time Cop when Dark Horse was getting into that stuff. Writes a lot for TV and movies these days. Wrote a lot on Smallville and Battlestar Galactica. Anyway, same story. House and possessions in the Palisades area. Gone. How we can help. You know what? Let me jump back here real quick because there's a bunch that we don't know what's going to happen. I saw artist Dave Johnson say that he evacuated his home and went to stay at his studio that's downtown. I know that Radiant Black writer Kyle Higgins evacuated with his pets. I know Rick Remender and his family have evacuated. I don't know if their houses or apartments and stuff are okay or not. I don't know. Those are just some of the people I've heard that have made the tough decision, but the sensible one, of course, to evacuate. And I feel for all of them, and it's a tough time. I've seen posts from people that have gone through disasters like, say, Hurricane Milton or things like that, and a lot of the advice is, even when you're negotiating with your insurance and they're helping you, it could take 2 to 3 years to rebuild your house, just because all of the architects and all of the contractors get very busy. There's only so much they can do. So, it's a tough time. Let's focus briefly on something positive, which is that there are a few things we can do to help. Obviously, I listed where people had started a GoFundMe. You could look into that. But there's a few other things. The first one I want to mention is that publisher Mad Cave put out a statement. They announced they're going to create an anthology comic titled LA Strong, a charity coin for victims of the Los Angeles fires. Little unwieldy title, but I'm being a jerk there. That's nitpicky. They just haven't announced exactly which creators or how big, that kind of stuff. This is the earliest stages. But it's a nice idea. Yeah, my heart goes out too. Absolutely. Insurance is going to fight. They are, my advice is befriend your insurance claims adjuster, get them on your side. Understand that there's sort of a middleman, and just treat them with kindness and patience and understand that everything is a negotiation. The insurance company is kind of probably initially saying no to stuff. You have to sort of make the argument for why you need something, and sometimes they reverse that decision. Okay, so just know that. EJ says, lived in LA almost my entire life, never seen anything remotely close to this fire. Today I saw that the estimated damage was, I want to say $50 billion, and that it's basically adding up to be the most expensive natural disaster in U.S. history. If it passes something like Katrina, that is mind-blowing. Mind-blowing. Oh, Kevin has experience with this. It's taken me over 2 years and $55,000 to repair my house from the hurricanes down here in Florida. Inconvenient, but at least we are all safe. I guess it helps you prioritize things. I'm trying to be positive. It's tough. It's really tough. And, you know, these are people that entertain us and teach us about the human condition. So I want to put out just like a heads up that, you know, even if we don't have friends or family, we may have people that we sort of know that like are entertaining us. And comics people aren't necessarily on the same level as, you know, movie stars and stuff that maybe even have a second home in, say, Montana. I'm just making stuff up, but, you know, but everybody's got a tough situation. And I just hope people are safe. So yeah, creators and details on that anthology yet to be announced, but that's something we can keep our eye out for. Here's a nice one. Bookseller.org. They will match donations that people make to the Bink Foundation's California Wildfires Fund up to $10,000. Not bad. There's a link to that. So you can like do a donation, and that goes to, what does Bink stand for again? I forget the exact thing that it stands for. They help bookstores and comic shops that are in financial trouble. I just forget what it stands for. Does it tell me? Book Industry Charitable Foundation. Book Industry Charitable Foundation. It's a good organization. They've done a lot of good over the years. One last thing I'll mention. Collector's Paradise has 3 shops in the LA area. And this past weekend, so it's too late to take advantage of this, but this past weekend, they donated 10% of any of their online sales to the local fire department. Nice. That's the kind of thing you want to see a store do to help their community. So I'm impressed. So if I'm missing anybody for, you know, the devastation and stuff that's going on, I'm sorry. Those are the ones that I could find mentioned in the news. I'm sure there are many more. And, you know, if any of you have like friends or family or anything like that, I'm wishing them my best. You know what? As long as I didn't have this in my document for some reason, but I do want to share one other thing. It's unrelated to the fires, but it's also sort of a charitable thing. I'm just trying to find. Yeah, there it is. Okay. Mission Comics is a comic book store in the San Francisco area, and they had like a broken pipe or something like that. The store was flooded, lost a lot of comics in inventory. So they have not Kickstarter, a GoFundMe to help recover from that. And I just thought that was probably worth sharing. And it looks like they've almost hit the goal that they have to recover from the damage. So if you live in that area and you want to support like your local comic shop, I'm just putting the news out there. Mission Comics in the San Francisco area. Hopefully that helps them a little bit. So let's see. Most expensive disaster in U.S. history, and it's still ongoing, and it's not over yet. Just really bums me out. Hope LA rebuilds after this. Yeah, me too. It seems like a lot of the downtown areas is you know, fairly safe. There's enough of a barrier. But yeah. Yes, tell you what, Rami, when I finish the show, I always add chapters. I'll go into the episode description and add links to the various charities that I've mentioned. So yeah. Oh, I know, right? I went through a flood in New Orleans, and I lost Well, I lost everything I owned, and that included basically a 1 year comic collection because I was in college. So, like, the comics that I had from growing up were still back home, fortunately. But everything I had collected in my freshman year, gone. And it's really upsetting to go through. It's really upsetting. Eric Larson, Savage Dragon, Amazing Spider-Man, among many other things. Eric Larson once lost his house in a fire, and so he knows what this is like. He also he owns a lot of original art and owned a lot of original art, and of course that's just irreplaceable, right? You know, if you have something like a Will Eisner or a C.C. Beck piece of art that gets burned, it can't be replaced. It's really tough. Thanks for watching. Obrigado. Let's get back to the news. I've got one more serious piece of news that I need to address. So this isn't going to be fun, but I'm not going to go into explicit detail on it. If you've been looking at the news on any level, you may guess what I'm about to share. Yeah, it's about Neil Gaiman. So, New York Magazine, pretty notable publication. This is their cover story today. They are talking about Neil Gaiman, so you might be able to guess where this is going. But let me get into a little of the details. I'm not going to go into explicit details because that would get me demonetized. So journalist Lila Shapiro spoke with 8 different women. They all have allegations that Neil Gaiman, famous comic book writer, author, TV show producer at this point, they all have similar allegations, which you could say some of them definitely sound like the R word, which I can't use on YouTube, but I hope you guys know what I'm talking about there. At the worst, it's certainly crossing crazy boundaries. And I think that, like, you know, let me just acknowledge a super chat because it's the right thing to do. Thank you, Steve. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that you've gone through something like this too, of losing stuff. That's a tough time to lose stuff too, when you know, have less and you, yeah. But anyway, back in, actually, I may have some deal. Okay, yeah. Back in July, there were allegations made against Neil on the podcast that was called Master. That was from Tortoise Media. And it was pretty damning stuff. And I did mention it, you know, on the news. I didn't go into much detail then because Tortoise Media is like, it's just got some super, I'll just say, political stuff going on there. It's a UK based group, and they're pretty far to one side. And I wasn't trying to not listen to the victims. I was like, this is probably true, but I also don't know if I'm getting an unbiased account. But I definitely have, like, not bought any new Neil Gaiman stuff in the last 6 months. I'll tell you that. This one gets a lot more people on record. Their stories all have a lot of similarities, and it just looks bad. I mean, I guess he and his, you know, then wife Amanda Palmer had an open relationship, but the stuff he did to some of these people is pretty bad. It's just, and I'm not talking about it in detail because it is a huge article, folks, as well as obviously being tough to sort of circumvent YouTube's policies. But Gaiman's representatives, to try to be at least somewhat relaying the news without just sort of putting just nothing but my spin on it, I will say that Gaiman's representatives responded and said everything involved was consensual. But that is not the story from the women involved. And when stuff involves BDSM, consent is pretty much the most important part. So the article is also up on Vulture if you haven't reached your monthly limit on articles. They reset that, and I think you can read 3 a month there. So there's the link if you want to read it. I will tell you, it's a really unpleasant story to read, but it's really in-depth. And with so many stories matching, it just does not make him look good at all. It makes him look really, really bad. So, yeah, I just, I have a really hard time. I've talked about this before, separating art from the artist. And it's like sometimes I can do it and sometimes I can't, because I can't help but think about what they have done in real life. I just can't not, and that ruins the experience. I think it would also have to color how I looked at some of his stories. In the article, Shapiro talks about a pretty famous Sandman story where there's a story about a writer who has trapped Calliope, the muse, and assaults her over and over to get creative ideas. And it just makes me look at that story so much differently now. Yeah, I understand if you don't want to know. That's kind of part of also why I'm not going super into detail. Yeah, lots of trigger warnings if you decide to read it. Oh, who wouldn't? Who wouldn't? Lots of great stories, but he's done some bad stuff, it seems. It really seems. I don't see how we could look around it. I'm going to move on, but it would seem really weird if I didn't address it at all when I talk about news in the comics world every week. But that was that came out today. That came out today. So basically, if you're curious, I would just encourage you to read the actual article rather than deal with any of my take on it. Here's how I'm going to sort of transition out of that. Armie Hammer had a few accusations, not as bad as the stuff that was against Neil Gaiman, but not good stuff. It got him basically drummed out of the industry for a few years. He was an actor who was in stuff like Lone Ranger, and he was in, what was it, Call Me By Your Name was, I think, the last movie he did just before like some allegations went, and he got canceled. And he went on to be like a timeshare property manager, I think, in the Cayman Islands, just so that he could be close to his kid, because he and his other had separated. Crazy story. Well, he has been cast as the Dark Knight. What's that mean? It's not Batman, just to be clear. But I'll talk about that. So he's been gone from the public eye because of allegations of abusive relationships. Variety announced this week that he has been cast in the lead role in The Dark Knight. That's the name of the movie. And that's a vigilante thriller from Uwe Boll. If you know about bad movies, you know about Uwe Boll. And what a disaster. Todd McFarlane is laughing in irony. Thank you for the super chat. I maybe. I don't know if anyone can take pleasure in sad stories, though. If you haven't seen an Uwe Boll movie, they're not the fun kind of bad, in my opinion. I guess they must have an audience, but I found them miserable. It's really unlikely that Jim Maffood and I would cover an Uwe Boll movie on Trash Movie Bonanza, but who knows? You know, never say never, but it's very unlikely. They're just bad. Like, anyway. So he is coming in at the bottom. Yeah, he did a lot of video game adaptations. A lot of video game adaptations. He takes this weird loophole in Germany where you can get like these huge tax cuts if you film, I want to say, in Germany, or it's a German movie. It's weird. So, what's The Dark Knight? Well, the executive producer of The Dark Knight, Michael Roche, I'm guessing, he stresses that this is, quote, very different from Chris Nolan's movie, so there is no danger of confusion. Yeah, right. Come on. You know what you're doing. You're calling it The Dark Knight. It's not like that's a new term or one that we've only heard once or twice, you know? You can't call it like, you know, your friendly neighborhood web slinger and then just be like, what? No, it has nothing to do with Spider-Man. What are you talking about? No danger of confusion. Come on. So yeah, if you don't know, Armie Hammer had literally been cast as Batman. That's him in costume for George Miller's Justice League Mortal. That was a movie that was supposed to be made back in 2007. This is not like a fake picture. This is the actual cast in costume. But the writer's strike canceled that movie. We had DJ Cortana as Superman. I want to say the only thing I remember him from was Flint in one of the G.I. Joe movies. This guy was the funny nerd on that show, The O.C. Who was that actor? I don't remember. I can't remember who plays Aquaman. The lady that plays Wonder Woman was in George Miller's Mad Max Fury Road as that like young lady that meets Furiosa out in the desert. The guy that plays Martian Manhunter is the same dude that played who was the bad guy in Fury Road? I can't remember his name all of a sudden. Yeah, Adam Brody. Thanks, people. Adam Brody was the Flash. Megan Gale was Wonder Woman, right? What's the name of... I can't remember Furiosa's boss, the bad guy. Anyway, and I don't remember who played Green Lantern. So anyway, Immortan Joe. Not talking about the movie Furiosa. I was talking about Furiosa in Fury Road. So yeah, sorry. The guy, he also, of course, played the bad guy Toe Cutter in the first Mad Max movie. So he played two different characters that were both the bad guys in two different Mad Max movies. Immortan Joe. But yeah, this is Armie Hammer as Bruce Wayne / Batman. He would have had... What would his career have been like if he had starred in a Justice League movie? Yep. I forgot. Common was Green Lantern. You're right. It was Jon Stewart. Thank you. Anyway, what could have been, right? It was going to use basically the story that Grant Morrison wrote in JLA. It was going to combine two stories, I think. It was going to combine the White Martians, who like shapeshift into new superheroes, but are like basically just there to like subvert and, overpower the Justice League. And it was going to use Tower of Babel, where Batman has files on how to defeat each member of the Justice League. And basically Lex Luthor was going to get a hold of those files and use the White Martians to try to conquer the Justice League. It was a pretty good idea for a movie, in my opinion. Like, I was like, yeah, that's straightforward and would have given you a lot of action. Maybe not like the best cast, but that's probably why it didn't happen. It could have been cool, though. I think George Miller makes good movies. Paste Pop Pete, folks. You know I love him. Paste Pop Pete is coming to video games. Not even joking about this. Marvel Rivals. I've been playing it. I bet a bunch of you have. It's free. Anyway, Season 1, called Eternal Night Falls, that came out January 10th. Had two new heroes, Mr. Fantastic and Invisible Woman. And people looked at the data from the file, and there were 6 new superhero names or supervillain names that were being added to the game. 3 of them, very well known. 3 of them, pretty damn obscure. So yeah, sorry. In the data for that update, additional 6 heroes were discovered. So, we've got Professor X, sure. Cyclops, Colossus, Jia, Locus, those are both mutants, but like pretty obscure ones, and Paste Pod Pete. Paste Pod Pete. Paste Pod Pete. You call him Trapster, I call him Paste Pod Pete. Triple P. I tried getting into Marvel Rivals. It's pretty chaotic game. I'm not great at it. Data mining spoils things. The Year of Pete. I hope so. The Paste Man. You sent me a super chat that I missed? Okay, hold on. I'm sorry about that. Thank you for this super chat. You're right, I see it. I know about Uwe Boll, and I hope his movie is going to be an unofficial projected that is not associated with Warner Brothers and DC. It's definitely not associated with Warner Brothers and DC. It's about a vigilante who takes justice into his own hands, and the police commissioner goes after him. It's not Batman. It's just called The Dark Knight. They're looking for some confusion. They're looking for some confusion. No. Oh, hold on. Wait, I missed the wrong chat. Sebastian Stan is developing a movie based on Reckless. I didn't hear anything about that, but I'll look for it. If I can find it, I'll talk about it next week. I love that. It's weird enough that I kind of believe it, but we'll see. We will obviously see soon. We will see soon. I just was very amused because Paste Pop Pete. Radiant Black. Kyle Higgins surprised us all. He's got a free comic, a sale on the comics. This is a good time to get into Radiant Black. So, it's on a brief hiatus. Finished a big arc, a big sort of war with the good guys and the bad guys. And it's returning in February, okay? So, to get people caught up, there was a free issue called Radiant Black, The Story So Far. Free. That comic shops could order. And that can help readers catch up or try it if they've never been reading it before. I think that that's a great idea. That's a great way to create a jumping on point for readers, because I honestly think Radiant Black is really good superhero comics right now. Feels like anything can happen, but it's still fun and cool and different. There's a lot that I like about it. But on top of that, Kyle Higgins has made the first 6 trade paperbacks available for 15% off. And if you sign up for the official newsletter, they call it the Black Market Narrative Newsletter, you get an additional 10%, so you can get 25% off any of those trade paperbacks. That's a pretty big sale. There's the website to order Radiant Black books from Black Market Narrative. Wow. Yeah, great way to advertise. Your team, Nathan, I'm glad that you're reading the book. I picked one up. My comic shop that knows I pull and love Radiant Black, and they gave me that Story So Far issue in a bag and board. That's very nice. That's very nice that they treated you well like that. I just picked up the trades for the other Massive Verse titles. Not the biggest fan of Inferno Girl Red, but the Dead Lucky, Radiant Red, and Rogue Sun have been really great. Really like Rogue Sun. Rogue Sun is the one that I need to catch up on more. I like New Orleans. That's where it's set. I think that that's cool. I do like Inferno Girl Red. The one that hasn't connected with me as much would be the Dead Lucky. It's a cool set of powers, cool background. It just didn't connect with me as much, but I did like Inferno Girl Red personally. But, we're all going to be different. My favorite is Radiant Black. I can also attest those trades are nice. Yeah. I do Urban Animal with Justin Jordan. Webtoon has been affected by the fires, so publication and coordination has been a challenge. We were talking about the wildfires and how it's impacting comics earlier, but I hadn't heard that Webtoon was involved. Yeah, I remember quite a while ago talking with Justin, and your artwork on Urban Animal is really good, man. That's really. I'm sorry to hear that you're dealing with coordination problems. Obviously, there's even bigger concerns, but that's a hassle. I need to catch up on Rogue Sun. Okay. That's I'll keep that in mind, man. Thank you. But anyway, I just first of all, I think it's a good deal. Second of all, this is a comic that I sincerely like, so I want to spread the word because a free issue to get caught up on, 25% off that you could get on the past trades. It's a good deal. It's an easy way to get into it. Apparently, Walking Dead looks like it's getting ready to introduce a villain that wasn't used in the past. I'll explain. That's confusing. So, The Walking Dead Deluxe. If you don't know, this is the colored version. Dave McCaig does colors on the issues. They're already up to 104, which is wild to me. And in the back of that, Robert Kirkman always sort of writes an essay of what he remembers when he originally wrote this. It's just sort of like a bonus content or a director's commentary. It's really cool. And in this issue, he talked about 2 villain ideas that ultimately he just didn't use. And mostly he just remembers their names. One was the contractor and one was the gardener. Actually, he said that the things he could tell us about the gardener, but he was going to keep it quiet. But if you look at the solicitations for Clementine, book 3, that's by Tilly Walden, and that comes out this year, and that is set in the Walking Dead universe. It's just sort of a young adult comic book, one that I've enjoyed. This is the solicitation for Clementine, book 3. Clementine finally has it all: a safe place to live, a girlfriend, and even a cat. But nothing lasts forever. And when Clementine suffers a loss unlike anything she's ever faced, a new mentor called the Gardener offers her a new family and a new way of living. But at what cost? That seems like way too much of a coincidence to me. That sounds like Tilly is adapting an idea that Kirkman had for The Walking Dead that just he never found the opportunity to use this villain. And now it's going to be used in sort of, we'll call it the extended universe. I like the Clementine books. I think that they're really good. Yeah. The cool thing about Clementine is that in each of the first 2 books, she makes really good decisions about where to potentially go to not have to deal with zombies. In the first one, she goes to the north and into the mountains where it's really snowy, where it should be too cold for them to function. And then in the second one, she goes to a small island off the coast. Again, should be, an easier place to fortify. Good ideas. I like it. Kirkman hates vegetables. That explains it. Yes, he always said, lima beans, not for me. One day I'll make a villain out of this. Write what you know. I'm glad you like it. Yeah, Clementine from the game. Telltale Games made, obviously, some Walking Dead games with a little girl named Clementine. And then they were going out of business. And so Skybound actually bought them. And now they sort of own all those extended assets, those characters and stuff. And they've continued Clementine's story. It's going to be a trilogy of books. The first 2 are out. I like them a lot. Like I say, they are written for like sort of teenage readers, but they're really good stories. Something to look forward to. If you loved Walking Dead and were like I want to read this and then like try to imagine retroactively what that character's role would have been in the Walking Dead title. That would be fun. The guy from Rogue One? Don't quite know what that means, to be honest. Clementine is just right now graphic novels by Tilly Walden. Ghostbusters is coming back to comics. This is apparently an accident, but on January 6th, there were 2 covers that were apparently mistakenly shared on the Previews website where, shops can order upcoming comics because it's been taken down. But you can find it on all sorts of Ghostbusters news sites and stuff. It showed a cover for a new Ghostbusters comic. It's the second miniseries that will be set in that period between the movie Afterlife and Frozen Empire. It's titled Skeleton Crew, and it seems to have a ghost pirate ship. That could be fun. Could be. Let's see. Sorry if that previous joke was a bit too edgy. I was referencing how he defeated Magneto in the animated series as well as a Family Guy joke. I missed the joke. I'm sorry, Dumpster Daddy. I appreciate the super chat, but I missed what you were trying to joke about. I also don't really know Family Guy I'm aware of what it is, but I don't watch it, so I probably would have missed the joke. I'm sorry. Anyway, the writer, David Boer, who we talked about earlier, one of the guys that lost his house. He also wrote the previous miniseries, to be clear. That was called Back in Town, which involved, the crew of Afterlife moving to New York City. But I guess this will be like one of their first big missions. I feel like, ghost pirates are a good idea. I think that the Pirates of the Caribbean movies showed us that can be a lot of fun. Yeah, Ghostbusters and Scooby-Doo do seem like they could link up. You're right. I don't know. Got it, Dumpster Daddy. Well, thank you for the super chat. Thank you. just putting it out there. If folks are fans of Ghostbusters, I consider myself a fan. The last movie, it wasn't great because it had way too many characters, in my opinion. And if it had a little more space, a little more breathing room for the characters, I think it might have worked better. It was just a lot of characters. But I will say I didn't hate it. I really didn't. And I specifically did like Kumail Nanjiani in it. I thought his character really felt like it belonged in Ghostbusters and was funny and interesting. So there were parts of it I did like. It was just that, like, at the end, I want to say there were like 9 or 10 Ghostbusters laser blasting a ghost. And it was like overkill. Too many good guys. Dudes and ladies and all, Daniel Warren Johnson is doing a Wolverine story. I was excited to hear this. I'm a bit of a Daniel Warren Johnson fan. So Wolverine issue 8 is going to be his legacy issue 400, and Marvel released some details. Then I've got some questions for you guys. The main story is by the regular crew. Saladin Ahmed, artist Martin Kokolo. It's going to introduce a new villain called the Adamantine, and apparently also Wolverine has a mentee at this point, like a Wendigo. So I'm behind on my Wolverine lore. None of that really meant anything to me. It might be good. I didn't understand it. I'm not caught up. But look at this is just, a commission that Daniel Warren Johnson did, by the way. Like, this isn't like from the book, but he's going to be doing something. There's going to be a story in it. It says written and drawn by Daniel Warren Johnson. That sounds so cool. And then I looked at this cover and I'm like, okay, these are like Wolverine's big enemies, right? We've got Sabretooth. We've got Omega Red. I want to say this guy was maybe the Gorgon. That's Ogun from the miniseries when he went to Japan. This is Cyber, a guy covered in adamantium. This is Lady Deathstrike. Constrictor, that's a little bit of a pull. Who the hell is this just guy in a business suit with blonde hair? Is that me? No, I don't know. No, there's no beard or glasses. Who is this guy? Who's a guy with blonde hair and a business suit that's a big Wolverine enemy? I really don't know. And am I wrong about this being Gorgon? Because I'm not sure about that one. I think that's who it is. Von Strucker? One of the Von Strucker twins? Maybe? Yeah, I know. It looks like Guy Gardner. Exactly. I don't know. I just have no idea. That's not Batman. For a second, I thought that was Batman too. Then I remembered Cyber. We haven't seen Cyber in a long time. I don't know if he's still alive, like if he came back. I think at one point, Apocalypse had one of his 4 horsemen send these like bugs to eat Cyber's flesh just so that he could steal the adamantium and turn Wolverine into death. I don't think it's Guy Ritchie, because Guy Ritchie always has his glasses on. Always has. And he has like more of a buzz cut. Stryker? William Stryker? I've always thought that they illustrated William Stryker as older. And he usually has like the Reverend collar. Hold on. Romulus, not Gorgon. Romulus. That's actually who I was thinking of, I think. I forget who Gorgon was. I think that was somebody from The Hand or Hydra or something like that. But Romulus, right. And that's Graydon Creed. So that's Sabretooth's son that doesn't have mutant powers and like frequently has sentinels and stuff like that. Yeah, but Maverick's typically an ally. The one that makes the most sense to me is thinking Graydon Creed. It could be Graydon Creed. He's usually with the Friends of Humanity. He does wear business suits. He is blonde. The new enemy is possessing people with adamantium. Oh yeah, Constrictor does have adamantium whips. That's right. His coils are adamantium. Oh, I'm jealous out of Voida. I think Hama's run is a blast. It just goes. It could be Dave from accounting. It could be. Donald Pierce is a decent idea, but I think that they would have put him in he's usually wearing like an ornate costume, and he is cybernetic, so I think that they would have given some indication. This is just a guy in a suit. So honestly, Graydon Creed makes the most sense. Oh, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah. Bastion doesn't look like that, though. He's got like a goatee and white hair. Yeah. I'm going to move on, but thank you guys. I'm now positive this is Romulus and Graydon Creed. I'm sure that guess was right. Oh, yeah, this comes out April 15th. I'll be picking it up just for the Daniel Warren Johnson story. That could be fun. Philip Kennedy Johnson stepped in to explain that there is a Superman delay, not a cancellation. Things got a little confusing for like 2 days this week. So on Friday, the solicitations for this, Adventures of Superman, The Book of L by Philip Kennedy Johnson, writer, artist Scott Godlewski, it got pulled and no future date was announced. So the news was, oh, this book got canceled. They're not going to make it. It was originally scheduled for release this March, but that's not the case. Because Johnson posted a video to Twitter the following day, on Saturday, explaining it's not canceled, it's basically delayed, and then he went into saying that there's actually more to it than even that. He said that that was a simplification, that basically the book is covering some of the same ideas as the upcoming movie. So what they've decided to do is wait for the movie to come out, and then the comic will. So anyway, sort of a businessy decision. But I like Philip Kennedy Johnson's writing, and they this creative team previously, a couple years ago, did Future State House of L, which was very well received. That focused on future descendants of Superman. This one's called Adventures of Superman, The Book of L. I mean, maybe it'll have something to do with like his Kryptonian heritage, but I think it's squarely focused on Superman. Yeah, it's a good one. It's a good one. It's the finale. Might be. I probably will pick it up, but maybe not on Wednesday. I think I'm going to meet David Nakayama later in the week at a comic shop, so I'll probably pick it up later this week. He's going to tell one final story that ties together all his previous stories. That would make sense. And yeah, in his language, this stands for delay, not cancellation. It's a joke. It's a joke for nerds. That's what we do here. Jeff Lemire outlined some Justice Society of America plans. This is pretty brief, but he posted this to his Substack, what his plan is for this year, because this book just started. So he said this is a quote. Our current big opening storyline, Ragnarok, was designed to feel like a classic JSA comic. I was really trying to capture the feeling of Jeff Johns' early 2000s run, mixed with the Infinity Incorporated and All-Star Squadron series I loved as a kid. This opening story is a big one. It will span the first 12 issues of the series, but I will take a time out with issue 8 to do a Times Past one-off set in 1945. That one will be drawn by Gavin Guidry. Here's some of Gavin's incredible inks from that issue. That's this. After the Ragnarok, I'm planning a series of shorter character pieces and then on to the next big epic around issue 15 or so. Sounds like a good overall plan. I read the first issue, thought that the art was incredible, thought that the characterization was good, but that there were just so many characters, I just felt overwhelmed. But I do really like Gavin's artwork. So I may dip in for sort of like a one-off story set back in like World War II with the original Justice Society. That could be a lot of fun. That could be really cool. Yeah, it does look good. Love Gavin's art. Cool to see him get to do issues on this and Uncanny X-Men. Yep, busy. I'm liking Lemire's JSA so far. I'm glad to hear that. I am. Love the JSA. You know, I haven't been reading it, Enrique. I've read a bunch of Philip Kennedy Johnson stuff, including, of course, I really like his Hulk run right now. But I don't really know his Superman work. I guess I figured at some point I might read it as a trade paperback. I don't know what happened with that. That's a good question. My medically impaired memory cannot process too many characters. That might be me too, a little. You love it when there's lots? Do you love like Jeff Johns comics? Because Jeff does balance a lot of characters in his stories. Yeah, I'm looking forward to trying some more Absolute stories. I've been pretty impressed with what Absolute is so far. I have some friends that have really recommended the War World story arc. They've said that that was really a cool Superman story. I should read it before the movie comes out. What else have we got? A few more pieces of news. DC is bringing back Resurrection Man. See what I sort of did there? Bring him back. Because he resurrects. We're laughing. We're having a great time tonight. Ha ha ha. All right, so I'll explain if you don't know who this character is, because it's a weird one. But DC announced that writer Ram V and artist Anard RK will bring back what I'm calling a strange superhero, Resurrection Man. It's going to be a Black Label series. It's going to start in April. It's going to be 6 issues, and it follows Mitch Shelley, this guy. And he revives each time he dies. He revives with a new superpower related to how he died last. It's pretty weird, like I said. Not quite Dial H for Hero or Ben 10, but definitely a guy that just comes back with other superpowers. In the new series, Resurrection Man Quantum Karma, Mitch will come across a sadistic World War II prison camp captain, I bet he's from Germany, who has a twisted version of Mitch's powers. They said that it's going to get cosmic, like he's going to have to save the universe this time. Yeah, honestly, they said that they were bringing back Vertigo. I mean, they have, basically. They brought back the Vertigo label. I was surprised. This obviously shows that they are definitely still keeping Black Label an entity. How they divvy that up, I'm not 100% sure. I think what they're doing, though, is that if it's involving a DC character primarily, and it isn't sort of in continuity or it's mature, that's Black Label. But if it's creator-owned idea, that's Vertigo. I'm pretty sure that's the difference. I enjoyed the new 52 series. It got canceled. Technically, it all got canceled, but yeah, I know what you mean. No, he just gets a new power each time. He just gets a different power. It's a weird, cool idea. It's a newer character, too. I mean, I want to say he was invented in the 90s, so I guess that's been around a while, but yeah. Ram V is a very good writer. I haven't adored everything he's written, but I've liked a lot of it. The Many Lives of Layla Starr is a recommendation for you folks. Yeah, he does have a run of hits. The one that I sort of fell out of being in love with was when he was doing Venom. I think I thought that the cosmic stuff for Venom would work. I'm a big fan of Brian Hitch, and he was doing the artwork. But I kind of only liked the cosmic stuff when Donny Cates did it. It didn't connect with me other than that. I know, I get that. Are any of the Vertigo comics set in the DC universe aside from Sandman, Constantine, Lucifer? I don't think so. Oh, well, do you mean in the past as well? I mean, Swamp Thing. But yeah, kind of related. I haven't read that. Layla Starr's Fire. Yeah, it's a really unique, cool book. 97. Okay, I thought it was the 90s. That sounds right. Yeah, so to me, that feels newer. Then again, that's almost 30 years. So it's more than 25. All right. Diamond has offered some excuses to retailers on why there have been delays. I don't know. Have you folks felt this? Because I have. There have been several times in the past several months where a comic that I want to read and is solicited is coming out on Wednesday just ain't there. It's been happening. So comic retailers are continuing to experience delays in shipments through Diamond. And Chris Powell, the chief sales and service officer, he wrote to retailers this past week, and I'm only including a part because it's a very long letter. I think that this part's relevant, though. This process is not working as it needs to, obviously, but modifying it takes time. Ideally, changes would have been planned and tested while we continued to operate as we had been at Plattsburgh. They had 2 distribution centers for a long time. Plattsburgh was the one up in New York. With that no longer an option, we must make changes and test them with live data and shipments, while trying to minimize the impact on retailers. I don't understand why you couldn't have tested this stuff before you closed it, but there's no real explanation for that. You feel Lunar is just as bad? I guess I haven't had that issue personally, but that is interesting to hear. So maybe it depends on where you are in the country. And I have no idea what it's like for Canadians these days with like their postal strikes and like therefore every other distribution channel getting pushed to its maximum. Diamond sub-distributes in my region, so everything outside of Dynamite has been affected. On January 10th, that was this past week, Diamond announced that they closed their only distribution center, the one in Olive Branch, Mississippi, due to inclement weather. Just to be fair, I think that was warranted. Mississippi got over 9 inches of snow the previous day, so I understand. That we have to assume that these things happen. It's just that now they've got all their eggs in one basket, essentially. So, yeah. I agree. Comics may go through some very hard times this year. We will see basically day by day. It's so many variables that I've kind of given up trying to predict exactly what is most likely to happen. What? To Italy? How does that happen when something has to go through, what do they call that? When customs. How does that even happen? You'd think that that's where it would get caught. Oh, well. Swamp Thing started as part of the normal imprint, but did become a Vertigo title eventually. Yeah. Would love some likes. If you have 2 seconds to just click the like button, it helps the channel. Thank you. A storm is coming. Probably. I don't know that you can sue them. I mean, it's not like they're intentionally not giving what they promised. They're just delayed a bunch. I mean, there's nothing that says that you have to be an efficient business. Was Black Orchid also a Vertigo book? And that was written by Gaiman, wasn't it? Everything, it's a small world we're dealing with here. Lots of connective tissue. Well, I maybe I should have had that in there because the places that were reporting on this were like comicbook.com and Bleeding Cool and a couple other news sites. And a bunch of them did get quotes from different comic book shops. And their biggest complaint was more, not even what was happening so much as that they weren't getting timely communication updates from Diamond as to like what to expect and how to correct the issue. Got 2 more pieces of news, and then we'll look at some comics, maybe draw a little. Crunchyroll is getting back into manga, but I have to say, before I get too far, might be a mistake. Might be a mistake at this point. Well, publishers don't, all they really handle is making this stuff and then setting up the best deals. I mean, they don't print it themselves either. They send the files somewhere where it gets printed, and then a distributor gets it to the stores. So, your question might be more like, well, why doesn't a printer do distribution? Sometimes they do, but usually on a local level. So that's why publishers, they have and why don't they distribute their own comics? That's what led to the comics collapse in the 90s, to be clear. I'm pretty sure I talk about it in my episode on distribution on Comic Tropes, but that was made so many years ago, I'm not 100% sure. But basically, Marvel bought a distribution company. And that led to each of the distribution companies starting to consolidate, and it led to a bit of the collapse. So it did not work well at all. It did not work well at all. You definitely, there are competitive advantages to having them as separate companies. You'd think, sure, there's cost savings. Well, there can be, but they could also start setting their own prices when they don't have the competition. So competition can sometimes be a good thing, to be clear. Anyway, I'm getting sidetracked. Let's talk about Crunchyroll. This is their, what do you call it? Their mascot for their manga app. I think she was called Hime. She would give recommendations. So this week, Sony had the Consumer and Electronics Show. I think it was virtual again. I didn't double check on that, but I'm pretty sure it was virtual. Anyway, Crunchyroll, which is owned by Sony, announced that they're bringing back their manga reading app. Historical stuff. They started their app in 2013, had pretty much all the publishers on board that do manga. But Kodansha ended up pulling their stuff because Kodansha launched its own app called K-Manga. They launched that app back in January of 2023, and by the end of that year, Crunchyroll ended their app that December. Because Kodansha puts out a lot of big stuff, you know, Attack on Titan, Akira, Blue Period, Vinland Saga, I want to say. So, no word on which publishers Crunchyroll would be carrying with the return of their app, but I just wanted to point out that many of the biggest publishers now have their own reading apps. Shueisha has Manga Plus, Viz Media has Shonen Jump and Viz Manga, and Kodansha has K-Manga. And then there's a couple others that I'm not even mentioning. So I don't know, you know, maybe they think that these apps are lacking in something and that they can somehow negotiate new deals, but they haven't announced which publishers they're working with. But I feel like Shueisha and Kodansha are where you start. Like those are the two biggest. Shueisha is Weekly Shonen Jump and has like most of the stuff that Viz publishes here in the States and in North America. Yeah, that's a good one. I think you're right that Seven Seas doesn't, but Seven Seas is more of an importer than an actual publisher. So no, I think you're right. Like the Shonen Jump one is pretty affordable for what it gives you. I guess they could be planning on publishing some originals, or at least like licensing from smaller publishers, but I don't know. I just, there's no news. And I'm just sort of like, boy, who do you get that makes it worth bringing the app back at this point? Yeah, you could be right that there could be some integration opportunities, but I don't know. Oh, tell you what. Oh, man. If you haven't read it or haven't read it in a while, wherever you could get Slam Dunk, that is a very special, awesome manga. Very, very cool. What is the difference between importing and publishing? I'm talking, okay, so importing would be more like translating it into English and publishing it for a local audience. You know, it's essentially a version of localization. Publishing, I'm talking about, you know, the publishers over in Japan that like actually are hiring the artists and writers and putting it out for the first time. And then they can put it out through their own app. Yeah, exactly. Sony may buy all of Katakawa from the news that we've been seeing. They are looking to buy up a bunch of anime stuff. Maybe that will include buying up manga stuff too. Last piece of news, also manga related, although it's little. Mattel is teaming up with TokyoPop. Our dreams are coming true. Okay, toy manufacturer Mattel, manga publisher TokyoPop, they announced an alliance. Specifically, they're going to make titles for with what they called Western style manga. I assume that just means comics drawn in a manga style. That's all I can imagine. And they're going to start with two of their brands, Hot Wheels and Barbie, with titles set to debut in print next year, 2026. I suppose if you're going to turn toys into manga, I can sort of see how something like Hot Wheels can work. For Barbie, I feel like if you want Barbie to work, you have to give people a lot of freedom to just interpret and don't put tons of rules on like Barbie can't do this, Barbie can't do that. The reason that movie worked was because of how bonkers and crazy it was. You know, it wasn't just trying to be like, Barbie lives in a nice, perfect world with her friends. That's boring. You need conflict. So Barbie, I feel, is the trickier one. But Hot Wheels, I know. Oh, my God. I have always been looking for that. I have never seen it. I probably couldn't afford it if I found it, but I would really like to get the Alex Toth Hot Wheels comic. Yeah. Yep. I would potentially check it out too, depending on who is working on it, what the story is. I think I've said to you guys, one of the more recent mangas for me, it's an older manga, but more recent ones that I've read that I've really enjoyed is Initial D, which is all about street racing, drifting. It's really cool. Barbie Akira. Yes, let's have them cross over. They have continuities. Geez, I didn't even know that, but I was just like, let's just talk about racing. There's a lot of different ways you could go. There's a bunch of creators that if they said they were working on Barbie, I'd just be like, yep, no worries, sign me up. If I don't know, Grant Morrison was like, I've got a Barbie story, I'd be like, okay, you have my attention. You had my interest, but now you have my attention.
You should get Arnold. Arnold will come in and write a Barbie comic with all that fun stuff, and the things and the explosions and the friendship and all that good stuff.
I don't know what I'm doing. Luana Vecchio. I just hire somebody from Italy to do it. That's where all the great artists are coming from these days, is Italy. And Spain. There's a lot of European artists, in other words, that are getting hired into American comics these days. Sorry, I'm just trying to hook up my extra camera so that I can show some of the comics that I read this week and give you some mini reviews. Did I do that? Let me connect all this stuff. And you guys, I want to see lots of Barbie manga jokes. Lots of Barbie manga jokes, please. There we go. Okay, I'm going to move this over here a little. And focus it. Sorry that this always takes a minute. There we go. Tapping into the kids market. Great idea, TokyoPop. Thank you for the super chat.
I don't know. I came up with that.
Just sound like a monster.
What about Fist of the North Star, Barbie? That could be really fun and things could be nice and cool and all that stuff.
I don't know what I'm doing. I'm sorry. I'm having fun. I'm amusing myself.
Barbie, you idiot. You're supposed to go over here, not over there. It's not a tumor, Barbie. Get in your car. I want to race. I want to race, Barbie. I will read your comic, Barbie, if it's done by Daniel Warren Johnson,
All right. Hey, Chris. They were making an Uno movie? Draw 4. Okay. I did. Who do you get for Uno? I was about to say Liam Neeson as a joke, just because I felt like doing a Liam Neeson impression. And then I remembered, I'm pretty sure he was in the Battleship movie. So it's sort of like the first idea that comes into your head. Good enough. All right. So, first book I read, Lucky Devils. Look, when 8 Billion Genies was coming out, I was in love with that idea. And in a way, this has a similar idea. You deal with some regular people here. In this case, we've got Miles and Miles and who? Hold on. No, wait, that's the community college. That's not his name. I forget the name of the characters. That's not good. This is Star. She's a nurse. And then this guy's a teacher, like an adjunct professor. And I want to say his name might be Cam. I think his name is Cam and Star, okay? And basically, they're each good people. You know, they're doing they're doing what they can. For instance, Cam doesn't make a lot of money. He's spending his lunch break buying a fan with his own money because his students are getting too hot. Star took time out of her day to deal with a code brown for some elderly patient that's very sick. They do good things, right? And then I'm going to zoom this out just a little bit more. Oh, no, wait. It's got a good, I'm going to change the view to this. So, no, I've got a better view. Where is it? Is it there? That works better. That works better. All right. Anyway, they're dealing with things. Cam is getting really angry at all these things that are going wrong in his life, and Star is really sort of jealous of her coworkers that seem to have more money, and her mom is telling her about how successful her sister is. And then that night, they each get a visit from a little devil, okay? Like a literal little devil. Rake and Collar. And they explain that they were trying to tempt them, but they wouldn't fall for it. They were really good. They were genuinely good people. And that their job as devils is to they have access to one of the sins. And Collar was trying to use wrath, and Rake was trying to use envy. And they're trying to corrupt these people, but also give them power so that they could in turn ruin other people's lives and affect more and more people. And that being little devils is just a bureaucracy, and they're trying to get access to more powers and blah, blah, blah. And they're like, but we've been trying our whole lives. You won't go for it. You seem to legit be a good person. So that's making my life as a devil miserable. So you know what? How about I just give you that power and I don't try to make your life awful? And they're like, yeah, okay, go for that. And you're like, okay, what's the deal? Are they secretly trying to corrupt them somehow or something? It's better than that. It's more complex than that. You find out that these devils legit live in, just sort of a bureaucratic world where little devils have work to do. They're assigned to hundreds of humans, and their job is to try to corrupt them when they can. But that they never get ahead, really. They feel trapped in their jobs. They're actually a couple. And they're like, you know what? Screw this world. We've got these weird demonic halos. Don't know exactly what that means yet. They don't seem like they're good people, really, these devils. But what they're going to try to do is give people power and just try to break the whole system. They are trying to break hell. Hell feeds off of negative emotions and bad things happening. And they're like, we've been trying with these people to corrupt them for their whole lives. They're in their 20s or 30s. It's been miserable because they won't go for it. They're legit good. And it makes our life tough. We're not getting ahead. So tell you what, let's just break hell by giving them power, but not corrupt them. And I'm like, that's kind of funny. I'm curious to see where this goes. I also have to imagine that the axiom of power corrupts absolutely will have to apply at a certain point, right? But I still don't want these humans to be corrupted, because you see them tempted to get angry or get jealous, and the fact that they aren't actually makes them not seem like pushovers. It seems like they're actually making tough individual decisions. And it's the kind of person we want to be, right? We want to be good people. Sometimes you just give in to your weaker, baser instincts in retrospect. It's fun. It's fun. But I love the idea. Demons against power. Little devils trying to just go screw the system. We're devils. We're devils. Well, that's what I'm saying. I don't want the nice people to turn evil. So, 8 Billion Genies went in some really weird twists and turns. Charles Soule and Ryan Brown are definitely a team that I like. There's also a little in-joke in here. When all this stuff is going bad for this guy, it includes like a bad date. And when he gets home, he thinks his cat has knocked over some of his action figures and broken them. If you look at that really closely, that's the character from Brown and Soule's book, Curse Words. So he has an action figure based on the main character from that book, which is just a fun little in-joke. Yeah, maybe Shoulder Angels will show up at some point. I mean, that would track. If there are devils, there should probably be angels too, and see what happens there. But I'm glad that there's more to it than just trying to corrupt people. There's more to it than that. Like you go a level deeper and you're like, okay, what about the lives of these devils, these characters that are trying to corrupt people? Like, what are their lives actually like? There's something there, and I like that. So I do recommend it. I think it's fun. I think it's a blast. For Transformers, at issue 16 already, you'd think like, well, what else do you say? And to a degree, I do get hung up on that. Like, you know, what kind of new thing could I say for the week that I like about it? I love Jorge Corona's art. I didn't think I'd be able to be as passionate about this book once Daniel Warren Johnson stepped down to only write. But look at this. This is like two of their... a lot of fans call these gestalts. This is when a bunch of Transformers merge together to form a giant one. So down here, you've got like Starscream and Soundwave, and this is Bruticus. This is Devastator. So they're just having a huge slugfest while the other robots fight down below. I thought this felt very Daniel Warren Johnson-y when Astro Train transforms into a train just to collide with Soundwave. It's just, I don't know. Like, logically, why would that make a difference compared to going at, you know, to just being a big space shuttle? You know, you should be the same amount of indestructible, go at the same speed. Doesn't matter. They're Transformers. This is what they do. But here's what I like about this. These characters have nuance. And in this specific one, something I've been wondering that could happen in this happens. Thundercracker becomes disillusioned with the Decepticons and their horrible treachery and stuff like that. And he literally just sort of gives up on being part of everything. He transforms into a jet and flies away. He doesn't pick sides or continue the battle. That doesn't necessarily mean he's going to become an Autobot, but it's interesting seeing a Decepticon not just form another faction or something, but literally just sort of become so disillusioned that they're giving up. I like that. It's really interesting. These feel like well-rounded characters. Optimus Prime is going through some weird shit. Cliff Jumper has like this crazy idea on how to use parts of his fallen comrades to maybe make one new one. And look at that. I'm not going to give away too much of exactly what's happening there, but Megatron seems to be ready to make his return. It's so many cool things. Let's see. Just pre-ordered. Good. The parallel between that and the Autobots on Cybertron. It's heartbreaking to see how sort of hardcore some of the Autobots that have been turned into sort of guerrilla war fighters on their home planet have become. I think that this is a really special book, folks. It gives you characters that you actually care about, and the action scenes are just incredible. They're just epic. They're really good. I could just go through it like basically plot point by plot point and say why I enjoyed it, but I'll just leave it at saying it continues to do little twists that surprise me, and it delivers really fun, well-detailed action. So I'm enjoying the hell out of it. I'm glad D-Dubs is still doing the covers. It's a blast. Oh, one interesting thing. Sarah Stern was credited in this one for the colors. I don't know when that happened. I thought Mike Spicer was the colorist on this book. So I have to go back and see like when that happened. Did it happen with this issue, or has she been the colorist for a while? Because she definitely has a similar aesthetic to what I'm used to seeing with Mike Spicer, but maybe a few more gradients and stuff than I'm used to. Maybe. I'd have to compare it like side by side, but I was surprised to see that. Okay. Oh, I love how they've built up Megatron. I mean, they've just built him up, and he definitely seems dangerous. Definitely seems legit dangerous. Absolute Batman number 4 came out. And I think it might be my favorite issue of the series so far. In just one, we get a standalone story in this. And it's a sort of a take on maybe Batman Year One for Absolute Batman. Just sort of hinting at different important components of the creation of Batman in Bruce Wayne's mind. It's got a guest artist. I will point that out. What was the artist's name? Oh, yeah, Gabriel Walta. So it doesn't really matter what's happened before. This is just dealing with Bruce's whole life of how he comes up with Batman. It's got, the trial where he confronts Joe Chill. It's got his early version of the Batman suit and the fact that he took a gun out, with him. It's got flashbacks to Bruce when his father was still alive, doing some of his first engineering, trying to figure out a way to build a better bridge and incorporating the way bats work into that. And each of these things goes somewhere. Each of these things builds to something. Great art, really interesting to see the formation of a character. Intellectually, technologically, emotionally. Like we're dealing with a lot of different components. And that makes sense because if Batman was simplified too much to just be like, this kid is sad that his dad died. And yeah, it's just his dad in this. And he's so sad and angry that, he became Batman. That would maybe last a week or a month or something, right? Like you can't have that kind of motivation just last forever. It doesn't make sense. It really doesn't. If you're going to explore this character on a real level. No, instead this character has a bunch of motivation. He already, before anything tragic happened to him, wanted to use his engineering skills to find a way to help communities that were affected by natural disasters, find a way to have them get a better bridge to help with ways that things could get repaired. Just the idea of building a bridge. I mean, as a metaphor, that's a pretty clear metaphor. He's building bridges to make communities stronger. Yeah, I was confused at first too when I didn't realize how it was sort of jumping around in time. And I was like, wait a minute, why does Batman look like this? Is this somebody's, weird memory or something? No, it's just like a first draft attempt at being Batman with knives and a gun and stuff. And then he's sort of realizing that he needs to think more cleverly and create armor with tools and stuff. He needs to be something different and more powerful. And there's a lot of interesting talk about what makes bats special too. Everyone online is crapping on Gabriel Hernandez Waltz's art. And really? I haven't heard any of that. I thought that this stuff looked fantastic. Wow, I hadn't heard. Yes, no, I've seen this artist's work before. Definitely familiar. I like the art. I like the art quite a bit. Oh, this is a guy that's super motivated. But I think that sometimes you just come across people like that, people that are really smart or really dedicated to their work. Some people are just better at focusing. Sometimes I think that it's that our brains are just built differently, that we have different energy levels and focus levels, not just intelligence. So I love this issue. I thought that this was a really cool issue in helping explain how he's going to create his version of Batman. And he is quite different in a lot of important ways from the main Batman. I feel like this is just coming at the right time. Because as a kid, I didn't think about it too much when Batman was a billionaire. And it just meant that he had access to all sorts of gadgets and vehicles and stuff like that. And I was like, yeah, if you're going to be a crime fighter, makes sense to have those resources. But I think these days we're a little more clued in to how the ultra wealthy behave. And I think we'd be hard pressed to find a billionaire that we were like, that's a legit good person. That's a billionaire that wouldn't be corrupted by these devils. That's a person that's using their money for purely good. It gets hard to believe. I can buy into it. I can buy into one or two crazy things for any type of story to have some fun. But I kind of really love this idea of a self-made man, more or less. A middle-class guy that's just a brilliant engineer who makes his life better and uses that intelligence and that hard work to become a superhero. He may get access to more and more money at some point, but it's going to be in service of being Batman, not just in service of becoming comfortable and wealthy. I think that the idea of a billionaire Batman may sort of be becoming outdated. I think it may be something that like readers just can't relate to anymore. That it used to be a wish fulfillment type of thing, but now we're like, yeah, of course I want to be wealthy, but billionaires, they're kind of terrible people a lot of the time. It's really hard to believe that you could still be this motivated to be something when you grew up with all that money. It's hard. So anyway, I this was one of my favorite issues of Absolute Batman thus far. I don't have a lot to say about Napalm Lullaby or Moon Man now that I think, but although this is like, actually I will say something about Moon Man. Issue 6, and this one is a very standalone story where we finally do a flashback to see what happened on the space travel ship that turned Ramon into, what he becomes. And you get to see his history and you get to meet his coworkers and they go into space and there's a reason for them to do all this. There's a reason for him to do this. He needs the money. He's got the training from like the military. It makes sense. There's a guest artist, but I kind of liked a lot of the guest art, to be honest. I thought this was actually pretty fun. Yeah. The art is a little less, what do you call it? Like sort of street art stuff than Locati, who does a lot of the work, but it's still like kind of impressionistic and sketchy and weird and fun. I'll be honest, I kind of like this issue more than the others. I thought that this was a pretty darn good one. Let's see. I dropped Napalm Lullaby, wasn't feeling it after a few issues. I have to admit, I usually love Rick Remender as writer, but I've sort of gotten confused as to where the story is. The art is still great. Like, Bengal is a great artist. Like, that just looks pretty. Like, any pages that I open up to will look interesting visually. It's nice. But the story sort of lost me, whereas I don't find myself as lost with the Sacrificers, especially Gromitz's. I'm so keyed into that book. So Napalm Lullaby doesn't connect with me as much. I hope it does with other people. This one, not as much. Oh, thanks for watching it. I appreciate it. I wouldn't say that it's necessarily attempting to be a new editing style. I'm just trying to put in as much hard work as I can to make it visually interesting and not confusing. Last comic I picked up was Uncanny X-Men. And you know what? It's got a guest artist, Javier Garron, who's pretty good, although I love David Marquez. So I sort of miss Marquez a little bit, and that's just me being selfish. But we're always going to have preferences for art. This is certainly not bad, but I love what Marquez typically does. I liked some of the moves here. It's got two X-Men teams that were sort of arguing. I didn't read the crossover issues outside of this title, but I could still easily follow this. It's two X-Men teams teaming up against this new prison that is incarcerated mutants and saving their teammates and trying to save Professor X, but it's not necessarily completely successful. That's kind of a fun double splash showing two teams. And Cyclops, even though he's not the star of this book, he's the star of a different book. He definitely feels like a natural, amazing leader. And I do like that Gail Simone wrote him that way. Basically, this is just nothing but sort of an action and melodrama. There's not even a lot of character work for like evolving these characters. It's just a big fight, sort of the culmination of something. But it does sort of remind me of a lot of classic Claremont X-Men. I kind of like it. Kind of like it a lot. But I'm looking forward to David Marquez coming back, and I'm looking forward to that one-off issue that Gavin Guidry is going to draw for the Gambit standalone story set in New Orleans. I'm really looking forward to that. No, I didn't pick up Aquaman. Sorry. Don't know what's going on with that. The other thing I got, I'll be honest, I know I wanted this specific book, the Marvel Nightmare Art of Peach Momoko, but I thought that I was having trouble ordering it, and I guess I did. I don't think anybody got this for me because I don't think anybody else knows my address. I just didn't remember that I completed the order. It's from Italy. I'm sure someday this will come to America, but for now it's from Italy. And all it is Peach's covers for various things that have a horror theme. And they've got chapters like, symbiotes, vampires, monsters, etc. These are yokai. And if she has like a preliminary sketch, they'll have it on the left. They always have the finished art on the right. There's a couple really good ones. Let me see. Yeah, this one. Do you guys remember this cover of Miles Morales? I think that's a really good cover. Yeah, Kevin, it just showed up in my mailbox, so I must have ordered it. What's the next one that I really liked? Hold on. There's a really useful index at the back with thumbnails of each of the pieces of artwork. I appreciated that. There was a really disturbing one that I liked. Okay, page 73. I hadn't seen this one on the newsstands before, so that's part of why I got this. It's new. It's new to me. Look at this cool one. Like, first of all, Peach's sketches are great. There's a lot of energy to them, and this art could easily be inked and turned into something special. But then she paints it, and I thought that this one of Spider-Gwen turning Carnegie was very disturbing. How like corrupted and cancerous the symbiote structure looks on her, and the way the teeth frame her face there is great. I thought that was a really well done one. If Peach ever wants to move on from X-Men, I think she should do something with Spider-Man. I think she'd be good on that. We've got a bunch of Null stuff and symbiote stuff mixed in here. There's also a good one of Magic. Where was that? Let me see. But anyway, it's a nice book. It's a nice book. Like I say, it's from Italy, so it's not the easiest thing to order yet. You have to like import it from somewhere or set up an account, with like a foreign bookseller, something like that. Where was it? I've lost my place. How horrible. But I like Peach's super detailed paintings. It's very different than what she does as like the interior artwork for Ultimate X-Men. Oh yeah, I thought this one of Magic was pretty darn good. I really love the sketches. I just think that's interesting. Yeah, good pose. Really, really natural. And you start seeing like, especially when you look at the initial sketch, you're like, oh, look at all the shapes. It's triangles and circles, and maybe that's just where my head is at after studying them through Frank Frazetta. But I really like seeing that stuff. It's really cool. I'm surprised at how popular it is here too. Yeah, Peach would be good on Spidey, I think. She's supposed to be scary there, but yeah. A Penny Parker book. So yeah, if you can find it, I think it's a pretty darn good book through Panini Comics with Marvel. Once I finish this, I'll put some chapters in, and then I need to pack because I leave first thing tomorrow, and I haven't packed yet. But I'm going to take this camera with me, and my goal is to do some live streams while I'm on vacation. Yeah, so I think that could be fun. That's all I'm really thinking of doing, although I'm leaning strongly towards doing an episode on Ryoichi Ikegami, and specifically his Spider-Man work, not necessarily like, say, Crying Freeman or something like that. So that's one that I'm giving a lot of strong thought to right now. Ikegami. I think that could be a lot of fun. You know what? I'm going to have to take off my glasses if I'm going to draw. Anybody else out there drawing or writing, doing anything creative? You know what I may do while I'm on vacation? I literally may just use some of the downtime to write, to do some creative writing. I feel like that's just something I haven't really done for myself that I enjoy, other than like some fine tuning on a comic script that I've got. So I may just sort of work on that for myself. That's sort of my treat to myself. I am aware of the Japan Book Hunter channel. I've never talked to Sean in person, but he does seem nice. Be sure to bring your bathing suit and a nice outfit for dinner. Yeah, I will definitely be bringing both of those things, no question. Got any restaurants that you must hit on your itinerary? No. First of all, I don't really know the restaurants in Honolulu super well, to be honest. I've only been there once, and it was when I was a lot younger. My sister and I went on a family trip, but I don't remember. So I'm going to sort of rely, my dad's renting a place there. He's sort of my host. So I'm going to sort of rely on his good taste and recommendations, or possibly help cook. Chrissy and I could certainly do some cooking. In Japan, I wouldn't say that I've got like a must-have restaurant that I want to check off, but there are several places that I do enjoy, or types of food, I should say, that I do enjoy. Big fan of their specific kind of like a curry. Maybe get some fried chicken at the convenience store at least once, just because it's pretty good at especially, which one do I like? There's Lawson, 7-Eleven, and Family Mart. Family Mart is the one that I like. Chrissy wants to go to a sushi place, like probably one of the ones with the conveyor belt sushi. So we might do that. We'll see. I'm working on final drafts for my graphic novel, 3 chapters in. Congratulations. That's a lot. You should be very proud of that. You're writing, lovely. Drawing a podcast cover for Dissect That Film. I love it. I love it. Yeah, I sort of got that when I read this latest issue. It was just that I was like still kind of confused as to like who all the good guys are and bad guys. Yes, I'm doing both. I don't know. You say I'm so blessed, and trust me, I'm very grateful that I can do this. It's specifically because it started because like it was affordable. My dad is renting the place, so like that is not an expense in Hawaii. He's got a house. And so I was like, well, let's see, to fly out there. Guess what? From Seattle to Hawaii, it was only $300 round trip. $300. How can you say no to that? Like, we're like, okay, we can set that aside. And then I was like, look, it's probably not doable. And I know I've been there a bunch, but I love Japan. How much would it be to tag on Japan? Guess what? We must have threaded the needle. It's $500 to add Japan. $800, folks, round trip for Hawaii and Japan and home. $800. That's pretty hard to beat. I was like, Sold, sold. Famichiki, exactly. Comic tropes versus Meshi. Maybe. I think I can order a lot of food now, I could go in and be like, futatsu de karage kudasai, I could say, mizu onegaishimasu, whatever I need to do. I think I did you really? Like I say, Jeannie, I did not expect to find the deals that we found. Maybe that's thanks to Chrissy, but it was really good. So that's part of why we're doing it, is like it was really affordable. I know. I don't think it typically is, but maybe it's like a less popular time of year or something from this area. I have no idea. And look, I'm not even going, like whatever the middle class is called. I mean, we're going into cheap seats. It's a bit of a full. Oh, I'm sorry. It's tough. Oh, I didn't even think of that. You're right. You know what, folks? The plane could be haunted. I didn't double check on that. I did not think to double check if the plane was haunted or not. I have made the mistake of being on some haunted planes before, and it's tough. Oh, I have a friend in Osaka. He watched the channel, and I met him in person the last time I went to Japan, so I consider him a real-life friend, Tom. He's from New York originally, and he and his wife were in New York just recently, like a week or so ago. And they were flying home, and they were on a flight where a first-class passenger was so drunk and belligerent that the pilot had to make an emergency landing in Alaska, and it added an extra 4 hours to their trip. They didn't all have to get off of it, but the guy was so drunk and kept banging on the pilot's door, and he got himself trapped in the bathroom and couldn't figure out that he had to pull instead of push so bad that they had to make an emergency landing. Doesn't that sound awful? Oh, I felt so bad for him. J.K. Rowling just threw Neil Gaiman under the bus, but didn't he choose not to accuse her of stealing Harry Potter idea from him? It's like I don't even want to choose sides there. There's two authors whose work I've definitely enjoyed, and then as people, I cannot respect either of them anymore. You know what I feel like? I feel like Dr. Serizawa in the American Godzilla film. Let them fight. Let them fight. Oh. Oh, I know. I've looked into what would it be just to go down to, LA for a long weekend? LA can, not right now, but LA can be fun. I've got some friends down there. And, and you'd think okay, a shuttle, it should be under 500, but a lot of times it's not. From Seattle down to LA, you're not going to find anything for less than 800. And for a long weekend, that doesn't really make sense to me. Anyway. Do I think there'll be an Energon Universe omnibus with all the comics in order? With how popular it is, I would say someday, probably. But because there's not a ton of explicit connective storylines yet, there's connective tissue with places and things and mentions, but there's not a storyline crossing over. I don't think it's a priority right now. Yeah. Yeah, I'm probably going to be drawing this page. It's probably going to take me ages because, and I don't think it'll necessarily be that good, but I just sort of thought about it and I was like, if I'm going to be occasionally pecking away at drawing here, maybe I should at least do a comic. Now, this is a splash page, but I think that drawing sequentials could sort of help my skills because I tend to draw more character pieces, but not. That's a very different skill set than learning to actually practice your sequential work. So I'm trying to sort of better myself a little as an artist. And I'm a very slow artist. It doesn't help that I'm usually drawing while chatting with people. But that's what I'm trying to do right now is just sort of focus on, sequentials, and maybe even if I can just do a chapter, that would like, and I'm like, if I'm like, okay, I'm too slow or I'm not good enough. If I even did a chapter, I could then like be motivated to hire an artist to finish it or something, you know? Because I'm definitely looking to hire an artist for my werewolf story that I'm doing. Definitely not. I just would be too slow to do that myself, and I just don't think I've got the skill set to do it very well. But I love writing at least as much as I love drawing. So I feel really confident that I've got a good story on my hands with some twists and turns and interesting characters. Oh yeah, I think I will be doing an action sequence if I keep going at this, because there's some real life like fights and chases that I got involved in. Let's see. How long before Neil Gaiman and Warren Ellis start an imprint? I don't think what Warren Ellis did is anywhere close to as bad, just to be clear. But I also hate sort of ranking people's like sex pest ways. But you know what? Like, I don't know. Inappropriate attention and messages and stuff doesn't necessarily rise to the same level as physical stuff. So, oh, that's so kind of you. That's yeah. I'll try not to be thinking about YouTube too much. I really will. It's hard when you've been doing this a long time. But I think I do want to talk about Ikegami's Spider-Man. It's such a fascinating take on the character that didn't connect with audiences too much at the time, and I don't think it would even today, even though the talent involved is fantastic. It's a very strange sort of take on Spider-Man. It's very dark. Oh, thanks, Steve. Look at that. Should release 70s Spider-Man manga English. Well, just to be clear, they did release 8 of the 13 chapters in English over here. Yeah, it's in color and it's been flipped in the order, and it was released like, in monthly floppy format, but they did translate it. They did 8 of the 13 stories that were done. It was only done for about, like in Japan, it only lasted about a year. It wasn't that popular, even though it's got Ikegami on the art. Great artist, really, really beautiful. Temporary show merge with Ink Pulp. Ink Pulp's doing some great episodes lately. Definitely check that out. Yeah, although I'm talking, I think I want to do my episode about what Ikegami did on Spider-Man, because it's a little less known. I mean, people know that there was a 70s manga. I don't think a lot of people read it, and I don't think it connected, but yeah. I think you're right. It did have some Joe. I think it had more than one Joe Mad cover. It was a long time ago. I don't remember everybody that worked on it. I want to say that the translation may have been done by C.B. Cebulski. Keep in mind, the reason he had that second persona of Akira Yoshida is that he does speak Japanese, and I think he's a big part of, getting Peach to work for Marvel, because he can fluently speak with them if need be. So that's an advantage for him. Anyway, you know what? It's I know it hasn't even been quite 2 hours, and I barely did any lines on this, but I just realized I kind of need to go to the bathroom. So if I'm gonna get up, I may as well sort of like wrap things up. Exactly. Legendary mangaka Akira Yoshida, aka C.B. Cebulski. That is so weird to me, though, that somebody can do that and then that it can get like forgiven enough that you can become the editor in chief. That just feels like a big no-no that would have like had you sort of blacklisted, but I guess not. And I don't understand that story very well. I don't understand that real life story very well. I had a good time with everybody. Thank you so much for being here. And again, if you're able to hit the like button here, I appreciate it. If you're able to head over to comic tropes and watch my episode about Frank Frazetta, I'd appreciate it. I think it's interesting, even if you don't really know the art for some reason of Frank Frazetta. I think that there is stuff that you might find interesting within that about the comics industry and about composition. So that's just my 2 cents. But yeah, I'm going to take off, and I guess I got to start getting packed. You guys are the best. I can't wait to talk to you from somewhere other than my weird basement. So until I see you next time, keep reading comics. Double salute. Boom. Take care, everybody. See you soon.